Alright fellas, now in a bit of a controversial move, the UFC have handed a title challenge to a fighter in their first UFC fight. The fighter who Dana has gifted this chance to is Kai Asakura. With there being a lot of backlash and some praise from others, I wanted to answer the question, does Asakura deserve an immediate title shot? Now to fans of promotions other than the UFC, you've probably heard of Kai Asakura before. He's built an impressive resume outside of the UFC, primarily within the Rizin Fighting Federation. As a former two-time Rizin bantamweight champion, Asakura's reputation precedes him, particularly for his striking prowess and aggressive fighting style. His explosive performances have made him one of Japan's most popular MMA fighters and a name on the world stage. Among his most important bouts include his loss against UFC fighter Manel Kape, as well as his win over MMA legend Kyoji Horiguchi. The latter in particular stands out as one of his most significant accomplishments, where he picked up his first ever Rizin championship belt, although he did lose the belt in the rematch. Yet Asakura's crowning achievement came when he secured the Rizin bantamweight title for the second time by defeating Juan Archuleta at Rizin 45. This victory solidified his place as one of Japan's top fighters, and positioned him as a legitimate contender on the international stage. Despite his success, however, Asakura's fight schedule has been sparse, with only 2 fights coming since late 2021. Putting his history aside, one of the most polarizing aspects of Asakura's upcoming UFC debut is that he is being thrust immediately into a flyweight title shot against champion Pantoja at UFC 310, without having fought a single fight in the UFC. Many argue that Asakura hasn't earned the shot because he hasn't worked his way through the UFC flyweight roster. Fighters like Kai Kara-France have been particularly vocal, expressing frustration that despite having climbed the ranks and scoring important wins, such as his recent KO of Steve Erceg, he was overlooked for this title opportunity. And in fairness, we haven't really seen this happen before. When the UFC merged with the WEC in 2010, we saw fighters who were WEC champions come across and get given championship status in the UFC without a fight under their banner, such as Jose Aldo or Dominic Cruz. There are 2 other cases of this, such as when Yana Kunitskaya at UFC 222 vs Chris Cyborg and lost, and Gilbert Melendez, who was the Strikeforce lightweight champion, who fought for the UFC lightweight belt against Benson Henderson and lost via split decision. Now in terms of the actual fight itself, Pantoja's fighting style is a significant threat to Asakura. While Asakura is recognized for his dangerous striking and particularly his knockout power, Pantoja's ground game presents a different sort of challenge. If this fight goes to the mat at all, Pantoja's grappling could quickly overwhelm Asakura, who is largely untested against elite UFC level submission specialists. However, Asakura's unpredictability on the feet is what makes this fight so intriguing. Pantoja will have to respect Asakura's ability to finish fights with explosive striking, as evidenced by his knockout victories in Rizin. This bout will likely come down to whether Asakura can keep the fight standing long enough to land enough meaningful strikes, or if Pantoja will successfully drag the fight into his comfort zone on the ground. Despite the criticisms, there are several arguments supporting this immediate title shot in the UFC. One of the main points, as said prior, is of course his impressive track record in Rizin. Yet I would say the main reasoning for this choice is marketing. Asakura signing an immediate push for the title aligned with the UFC's broader strategy of bringing in top talent from international promotions. His popularity in Japan and the potential to tap into a growing fan base in Asia adds business value to his debut in a high-stakes title fight. Moreover, if Asakura wins, it could open the door to a UFC event in Japan, further expanding the promotion's global reach. From Dana White's perspective, the reasoning for this fight hinges on the excitement he brings into a division that is sometimes viewed as lacking big personalities. This viewpoint really suggests that the UFC values not only the talent that he brings, but also the ability to generate interest and freshen up the flyweight division. Brandon Royval, the current #1 contender, even commented that Asakura's presence adds a new element into the division, making future matchups more intriguing. The main criticism, as said before, mainly stems around Asakura being undeserving for a title shot, as he hasn't versed any top-rated UFC talent who have been in line for a title shot. Many fighters feel like Asakura has pushed in line for a shot which he is undeserving for, and furthermore, this decision could set a controversial precedent for future UFC debuts. By granting a title shot to a fighter who hasn't competed in the UFC, it risks diminishing the legitimacy of divisional rankings. It could suggest that external achievements hold more weight than success within the UFC itself, potentially discouraging other fighters who have put in years of work within the organization. Ultimately, whether Asakura deserves a title shot comes down to the balance between his talent and the UFC's desire for marketability and excitement. If Asakura can prove himself by defeating the champion, he will validate the decision. If not, it will fuel further debate about how the UFC handles title opportunities. Regardless, this matchup offers an exciting prospect for us the fans, with many waiting to see if Asakura can make the most of his high stakes debut. Now, let me know what you think of this upcoming fight. Do you think he deserves it? Let me know all your thoughts down below. If you did enjoy, please consider liking and subscribing. But thanks for watching, fellas, and I'll catch you in the next one.